So, being college students, I'm sure a lot of you are currently looking, if not already working in a job. And I'm sure that over the past year or so, you've all been excited with hearing that California will raise its minimum wage to $15 an hour. Unfortunately, I stand before you today to argue that raising minimum wage will fail to reduce poverty. So, my three main points for this are increasing minimum wage actually reduces the availability of low-wage jobs. Increasing minimum wage harms small businesses and their pricing, and increasing minimum wage does little to help economic growth. So starting first with the availability of low-wage jobs, businesses have about three responses to increased minimum wage, one of which being that they will lay off workers or reduce their hours. Economists from UC San Diego, Jeffrey Clemens and Michael Withard, have attributed a 12% decline in low-wage jobs between 2000 and 2012 to such an increase in minimum wage. Another response that businesses may have is that they'll find some way to automate the process and remove the low-skilled workers entirely. One such example of this is when workers for McDonald's had argued that they should get $15 an hour, and McDonald's promptly decided that they'll replace them. In an article by Bob Ottelman, McDonald's response to $15 minimum wage, automation in every store, he cites how a former high-ranking employee, Ed Renzi, claimed that rather than paying an inefficient worker $15 an hour, they would rather buy a $35,000 machine who could be paid off within a year in wages, as a worker would in a year cost about $38,500. The machine is a one-time fee, doesn't have to be paid hourly. Another response businesses may have is to outsource their work to cheaper labor, and thus increasing unemployment. An example of this occurred with the garment industry in LA. American Apparel eliminated 500 jobs and debated moving to another region. Guess Jeans and Hudson Jeans had already done so and moved production to Mexico and South America, and thus left many workers out of jobs. Now, on to my second point, increasing minimum wage harms small businesses and their pricing. When you increase minimum wage, you increase the cost of production by increasing the price of labor for it. So, many businesses will increase the price of their goods in response to this, and an example of this is Oakland restaurants. According to Joe Garofoli, minimum wage hike hits booming Oakland dining scene. Within a week of Oakland's minimum wage increasing to $12.50, they had already increased their prices, some of them as extreme as 20%. And some of them had raised another issue altogether. They removed tipping for waiters and included mandatory service fees, which raised the concern of maybe the waiters aren't getting what they would with tips. And also small businesses that can't compete by increasing prices are forced to ultimately close. This happened to Mocha, a coffee shop in Berkeley. When it raised its minimum wage, Mocha tried to increase their prices to compensate, and in accordance lost consumer traffic and announced that they had to close in summer of 2016. Now, a point I'd like to make is that in 2013, according to the US Census Bureau, a chart about 2013-14 employment change data tables, approximately 49.6% of all employment in California was derived from small businesses. So negatively affecting these businesses is negatively affecting the workers, about 50% of them almost. Finally, increasing minimum wage does little to help economic growth. the increase in spending that comes from the increase in minimum wage doesn't contribute to a significant amount of GDP growth, referring to gross domestic product. Gross domestic product is often considered the best measure of how an economy is doing, and its ideal growth is rated to be between 2 and 3%. Now, according to Mike Patton in the Forbes article, Facts on Increasing the Minimum Wage, such an increase from $7.25 for the federal minimum wage to $15 would result in about a 0.23% increase in the total US GDP, essentially having no effect. And ultimately, increasing minimum wage causes outsourcing, which contributes to other regions' economies rather than ours. Thank you.
All right, well, the proposition's very clear. There's an excellent layout of what the secondary structure is going to be. It's a controversial subject since the proposals to increase the minimum wage are all over the place, and California's already proposed doing it to $15 an hour. I mean, they've adopted it. It's going up $1 a year for the next 5 years or whatever the number happens to be. You signpost the secondary points as you're presenting them in the course of the speech. I think that's pretty clear. You did a pretty good job of explaining some of the information on each of the points. I thought that there might in fact be additional issues that are potential weaknesses in those chains of arguments that you're presenting, but I did think that you suggested, the likelihood that automation, lost jobs, outsourcing are the likely results. Those seem pretty reasonable. That assumes, of course, that the businesses can't absorb the changes. The best example that you have on that one is the example of that coffee place, Mocha, I guess it was, in Oakland, that went out of business. I'm not sure that that's the strongest, that's the best evidence possible, but that's the evidence that you have that works best at responding to that particular point. I thought you were very consistent with examples. We had lots of examples to illustrate the points that you were talking about. There's solid statistical information in a variety of places. Also good testimony. You give source citations for everything that you're citing, and it's relatively easy to follow there. I think the generalizations follow from the evidence that you're presenting for the most part. Your presentation could probably be a little bit more energetic, and it seemed like the ending was kind of abrupt. There's not really much of a summary, but that's probably just time issues, and you realize, well, I'm out of time, so I got to stop. So you don't want to stop in the middle of a sentence, but it's planning and rehearsal would fix that problem. All right, thank you.